Michelle, would you read the Open Public Meetings Act, please?
According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Here.
Mr. Ferrante?
Here.
Mrs. Labow? Mr. Mania? Mr. Stewart?
Here.
Mr. Roman?
Here.
Mr. Nacastro?
Here. The first item we have to adjourn to executive session. So, Alex, I would ask that you bring us into executive session.
According to Section 7 and 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, I would make a motion that we move into executive session to discuss the land sale proceeds and the BASF 57 acres, noting that the minutes will be available upon conclusion of the issue.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we just ask everybody if they can step out to the hallway, and we'll get you back in once we're out of executive session. Bringing back into session the meeting, the council meeting. Next on the agenda is the Certificate of Appreciation presentation for Susan Morse, and Pastor Matt is here as well.
Yes, thank you. I would ask them to come up to the podium. Okay. I guess it was Matt, was it about a year ago? About a year ago that we transferred the responsibility for maintaining the food pantry in town. We felt that there were others who were better suited to growing and maintaining and running the food pantry other than the municipality. Obviously, we're in the business of providing municipal services, and we're not as good in terms of the charitable aspect of what's required to make a community a community. So we met with the clergy, the Council of Clergy in town, and Matt stepped up, and we all thought it was a great idea, and Matt took the bull by the horns, and ultimately we transferred the responsibility of running the food pantry. And it's now housed in a house of worship it's on Smithtown Road? Smithtown and Sandshore Roads. I forget the name of the church. Christ Episcopal Church. And Susan actually has stepped up in a volunteer capacity and has done a tremendous job in terms of the amount of hours and effort, and we wanted to acknowledge her services to the residents of the township of Mount Olive and surrounding areas, and we thought that we would do it at a council meeting. So I have a certificate for you of appreciation of outstanding and dedicated service to the food pantry residents of Mount Olive Township. So really, we do appreciate it. It does not go unnoticed. Also, I can tell you that beyond the certificate, we thought that you would most appreciate the fact that we have a presentation both on behalf of the township and the Mount Olive Chamber of Commerce. Greg, if you would.
And in conjunction with our annual food drive that we do, that the community, the business community supports, as well as some of the other service clubs, I have a check for 500 Phoeners for you guys as well, from the chamber and our members.
Thank you very much.
So well done, all great work you guys do.
Thank you.
Thank you
Here's
so
one
much.
that's cashable.
That's what I was looking for. Well, thank you very much.
Up there with you guys.
Where do you want me to go?
Right in the front. This one looks good, but that one you can cash.
Yes.
Thanks again for everything you guys do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all the great work you do.
Thank you.
All right, up for discussion is the library board appointments of Catherine Casillo from Mayor's Alternative to trustee at large. Megan Tava, is it Tava, I guess, from Tava from trustee at large at mayor's alternate, and appointment of Chuck McGarty of township planner. Any discussion?
Just real quick, on the library board, they had requested a change, that the two switch their positions based upon their ability to service the library board, and so it was a no-brainer from my perspective in terms of making the change, and I would ask that you adopt that. The Chuck appointment obviously was something which inadvertently was left off our organizational meeting, and Chuck has provided services to Mount Olive Township for many, many years, and another no-brainer as far as I'm concerned.
Any discussion? No. 2016 budget presentation. Sherry.
Watch the room clear out now. Just kind of darken it a little bit so I can say. Howie told me I have 5 minutes, so I'm going to do my best to get to 5 minutes. Probably not going to happen. All right. All right, so I think everybody up here obviously knows me. For anybody in the audience who doesn't, I'm Sherry Collodi. I'm the Director of Finance and the CFO. And I'm here to talk about the 2016 budget. We have our budget hearings on Saturday, so I thought this would be a good time to fill you in before you meet with everybody who tries to hit you up for additional money, which is probably going to happen. So we have some new council members, I think, at this point, so I'll kind of just go over the process a little bit. Everybody can hear me, right? Okay. Usually that's not a problem because I can talk pretty loudly at this point. So the process, we are a Faulkner Act municipality. So the way that it works is we start working on the budget in September. We request all the departments, committees, boards to send us requests for what they're looking for the subsequent year. We hold our budget hearings, the mayor, the administrator, myself, we have departmental budget hearings in November. And we presented the budget to you, actually, I think it was like 2 weeks ago at this point now. Well ahead of the deadline because they've actually extended it this year. Our timeline for this year is that we have to adopt or introduce the budget by 3/18 and adopt by 4/22. I'm hopeful that once we get through Saturday's budget hearing and the fact that we have no tax increase, that hopefully we can wrap everything up on Saturday. And I'm hoping to actually be able to introduce at the February 9th meeting. I think we can do it. I want to also, just so you know, introduce capital that night. We have some equipment that is needed in the building, so I would like to get that moving. Obviously, we have to introduce, we have to adopt, and then there's a 20 days that it's till it becomes effective. So even if we start this process in February, we're not going to be ready to go with capital till March anyway. We are eligible for local budget exams, so what that means is we don't have to have our budget reviewed by the division, so that saves us a ton of time in the process. Once we're ready to adopt, we'll be able to adopt without an issue. Okay, just some general laws that affect what we do in terms of putting the budget together. Those of you who've been around for a while know we have an appropriation cap, which is a spending cap, and we have a property tax levy cap, which requires us to stay within a certain threshold in terms of what we can raise for property taxes. The good news is that we have $938,000 available in our appropriation cap bank, which we would never spend. And we have almost $2,600,000 available in our property tax cap bank. I actually looked at some other towns because you can go online and look and see what their banks are, and for the most part, we're like well above what other towns have. So that was great news to see. Alex?
The appropriation cap, is that number been fixed, or is this slowly creeping up every year?
Yeah, it usually goes up every year, Alex, because you know how we always do the ordinance to exceed what the maximum is that's allowed, so we can put it in the bank. And I always say we never use it, which we don't, but we put it there just in case of some devastating emergency.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why our appropriation cap is so large.
Right, and what's the percentage that we've been going up? Because I think we adopted it, 3-4 years ago?
We do it every year.
No, but when we did...
The max you can go up is usually 3.5%. Yeah. One of the things I'm going to talk about pretty consistently in this budget presentation is Chapter 78, which is the law that was passed regarding contribution to health benefits. So one of the things we have going on in the 2016 budget is that both of our unions are at level 4 in terms of the contribution, so they're at the highest, which is why we've got an offset in our health benefit line of almost $600,000 this year. That law is going to sunset for both unions at the end of this year, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. Okay, so the mayor's proposed budget reflects an increase in overall expenses by 1.17%. Our projected municipal tax rate is 0.606, which is the same as it was last year. So as we've said before, and as Rob has announced, we have no planned tax increase for this year. Our general fund rateable base grew by a fabulous number. It was 35 million, or we actually grew by 1.18%. What that means is, obviously, there were years where our rateable base was dropping, as some of you know who were here, because we were having tax appeals come through, BASF, things like that. So the fact that we are growing is obviously a good thing. The sanitation rateable base went up by 28 million, or 1.41%. We're also not recommending any increase in the sanitation district tax for 2016. So no increase in the general rate, no increase in the sanitation rate.
Sherry, on the rateable base, is that, are we near our peak, or we?
I have a chart, you'll see it. It's coming up. Yeah, coming up. I tried to think of everything. All right, so one tax point for us is 302,000. That's a common thing that's talked about during the budget hearings if you're looking to cut. So basically, if you want to reduce taxes by $30, you'd need to increase revenues by $302,000 or reduce expenses by $302,000. So to save $30 for an average taxpayer, you have to make a pretty significant adjustment in the budget to be able to do that. Okay, so the other question I often get is, how does this compare to our previous year budgets? We haven't had a tax increase here since 2012, so it's been a while. Okay, Alex, this is your rateable analysis that I have. And I could have listed out all of the year's numbers, which really aren't as important, but you can kind of see we had those years where we were really high, where we had the BAS rateable, you know, at its largest before we had appeals there. And you can see we've been pretty steady the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, so. Okay. People love this slide because what it does is it shows where the tax burden lies. And as we all know, you know, the majority of the tax burden rests with the schools, and this is, you know, a great example to kind of prove that. The school portion of our tax bill is 69%. Right now, the municipality makes up 20%. So when people say to you, why are my taxes too high? You know, the favorite response is always, well, the school makes up almost 70% of the bill. So. Okay, let's talk about surplus a little bit. We had the highest surplus balance that we've had in the 16 years that I've been here. So it was almost about $5,350,000. So why were we so high this year? We were so high because our tax collection rate was yet again over 99%. This is our second year in a row. It's always been high anyway, but the last couple of years we've actually been able to get it over 99.
How's that rate with when you look at the other townships? Are we higher?
We're actually
or on
higher,
average?
yeah.
Okay.
We are. My department is fabulous in terms of trying to get money in. We call banks, we call homeowners, we call anybody we think is going to pay the bill, basically. So Rose does a great job with that. We had few tax appeal losses. One of the emails that came out yesterday was from my staff showing you what the sales were compared to what the assessments are. Our assessments are holding strong. That's huge. I see that continuing this year, so hopefully we, again, will have few tax appeal losses. And obviously the big news story last year was the fact that we had added assessments to the tune of $1.6 million. And I'm happy to say all those things all came from my office, the assessor, the collector, and myself. Okay, surplus, again, this is another bar chart, and no, I didn't put all the specific numbers on the bottom, which you have in my budget book anyway, but this is just to kind of give you an idea in terms of where we are with surplus. And again, you can see like how much higher we are this year than we've been in the time since I've been here at least. Okay, I'm just going to quickly highlight some of the major changes in terms of the revenue and the expense side of the budget, so you can just be familiar when you go in on Saturday. We used a significantly, we used less surplus this year than we had in prior years. The reason for that is because I project out through 17 where I think the budget is going to be, and I didn't want to use too much surplus given some of the things that I know that are going to be coming forward. So that's the reason why you'll see the drop, basically. Local revenues, those are things like fees and permits, interest and costs on taxes, municipal court revenues, things like that. That decreased $88,000. Part of that obviously is because the collection rate is higher, we're collecting less interest and costs on taxes because obviously fewer people are delinquent, fewer people are going to be paying. Also, water tower rental revenue has dropped a little bit. Last year we had some back payments that they made that were pretty significant that we're not going to see again, so it was a one-time situation. Interlocal revenues, you know, we have interlocal agreements for animal control, for the court, and also for health. We typically have cost of living increases with those, so that went up $4,600. Special revenue items, hotel tax revenues have gone up almost $20,000, which is a good thing because we actually saw that decreasing for a few years. Construction revenues, we decreased $40,000, and that's simply because we can't anticipate more than we collected in the prior year. So, because I think we put in $500,000 last year and we collected about $460,000, so that's the reason for that. Grant revenues, initially with the mayor's budget, the grant revenues are always down because most of the awards don't come out until later in the year. So that's something that we'll see sort of correct itself later on. Tax revenues, we increased $256,000 to balance the budget. Okay, if you look at this is just a sort of a pie chart of, you know, what composes the revenues that make up the budget. So basically property taxes are 66% of the revenue side of our budget. We're using 10% to offset the budget and surplus. And then the rest of it is sort of just a mishmash of anything under 10%. Local revenue, state aid is only 7%, building fees, other items. Obviously, my point here is to show you that the biggest portion of the budget is obviously taxes.
Sherry, on the state aid,
Yes.
has that been staying flat? Is it going to be pretty much been the same for the last?
It has been flat. I haven't heard anything about it dropping, so I'm assuming it's going to be the same, Alex? Yeah. Okay, expenses. Salary and wages actually only increased about $90,000, which is sort of a net effect of a couple of things. Obviously, we have it going up because we have contractual increases, but then we also have it going down at the same time because we've had retirements. The library, you know, the 1/3 of a mil that we have to pay the library is sort of this magical calculation that nobody really understands. And basically, it's based on rateable value. So when the ratables go up, we have to pay more to the library. There were years, obviously, when the ratables were dropping where that wasn't the case. So this year, the 1/3 of a mil requirement for the library has gone up by about $51,000. Pension has gone up $93,000. The majority of that bill is actually for police and fire, not for just the general public employees, which I thought was interesting. Debt service, everybody knows I'm kind of neurotic about the debt service, and I really like to push the aggressive pay downs and whatnot, and I've been doing that since I've been here. So we're starting to see finally some relief from that, and that this year we had a drop of $611,000, or actually next year, I'm sorry, we expect that we're going to have a drop of $611,000, which is great. Legal and audit went down about $21,000. Our miscellaneous litigation, Dawn, you have to thank Fred for this, is actually dropped. So when you see him, tell him we said thank you. Departmental budgets, those have actually dropped $73,000. And that's sort of a variety of sources. It's a little bit here and a little bit there, which you'll get into the specifics of the departmental budgets on Saturday. Capital. The down payment for capital decreased because what we're recommending to fund in 2016 is less than what we're recommending to fund in 2015. Insurance, that's always a big hit for us. The insurance went up about $300,000. Obviously we've had more people retire, so not only are we covering them for retiree coverage, we're also covering the people who've replaced them. Plus we have the normal increase that's coming through from the state health benefits program. Accumulated absence, that's the money that we put in to fund retirements. I expect fewer retirements this year, so I actually dropped that $50,000. I feel comfortable with that number. Grants, again, that's what I already described, where we don't really know what a lot of those are right now, so that'll sort of fix itself later on in the year. Reserve for uncollected taxes. Because the tax collection rate has been going up, I reduced that appropriation. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, we have to pay 100% of school and county taxes, even though we don't technically collect 100%. So this is sort of like a contingency that we have to put in the budget. Okay, so the municipal budget, obviously the bulk of the budget, 38% of it is salaries. Why is that? We are a service-driven organization. We deliver our service through people, so obviously salaries are going to be a big portion of the budget. And then, when you have time, you can sort of look and see, where debt service falls and whatnot. Again, just more an informational thing, not something we have to spend a lot of time on. Okay, so moving into this year's budget, we have $105,000 on hand for tax appeals. I've spoken to Jack. We have very few tax appeals outstanding, so this is actually going to more than cover what we think we might potentially lose.
Now, just a quick question. You don't think the new development will come in with tax challenges, or that's pretty set?
That's
The
probably
new Toll Brothers one down by Flanders Crossing.
Regency.
the Regency.
Do you think they'll challenge it, or where it's rated?
That's
or?
probably more of a Jack question for me when he comes out on Saturday. Greg, maybe talk to him while we're up, because I wouldn't answer that off the top of my head.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah, Alex, were you going to say something?
No, I was telling which development it was.
Got it. Okay. We have like $114,000 in unemployment trust. I haven't funded that for a while because we really haven't had a lot of unemployment claims coming through. We have a decent amount of money in the trust, so we're good to go with that. Next year, we have another reduction in debt service to the tune of $706,000. So that is substantially going to help us in terms of what's going to happen with health benefits. So, the big thing that really is going to go on, and I've already had a conversation with Rob about this, and he sort of talked to you a little bit about it, I think, at the last meeting, is that our Chapter 78 is going to be sunsetting. So when I look at the calculation, we could potentially be losing about $400,000 in contributions. We have the $706,000 that we're reducing. That's going to be a reduction in debt service. But we're also going to have a general increase in health insurance. So I think one of the things we're definitely going to need to look at this year is going to be looking at potentially changing health providers to see if we can get a better deal to help offset some of that loss of contributions. But like I said, moving in, I'm happy to see that, we have the reduction in debt service, so that's huge. In terms of surplus, you may think, wow, you left a lot of money there. I left almost $2,350,000 in surplus. I have a regeneration schedule in the book. If you want to talk about it more, I can. I've actually projected out where I think we potentially would be in 2017. So I'm comfortable with the surplus number that's in the book. Obviously, I've been here a long time. I sort of know the peaks and valleys of what we're experiencing. So you may think, oh, gee, I could add back 100,000 here or 100,000 there. But what I'm saying is, given what I'm sort of seeing, moving down the pike, I feel like the number that we have in there is comfortable. The other thing I want to mention is in sanitation. We did not fund any capital in sanitation this year. The reason for that is we're still paying off sanitation that we had already funded in prior years. We have about $300,000 that we've been budgeting last year and this year we're doing it. And we have a couple more years where we have to finish paying off the Packer trucks and a roll-off and whatnot. So we had decided not to put in any capital for sanitation this year. So just so you're aware of that. I think I'm covered at this point. Honestly, I've been here a long time. This is my 17th budget that I'm working on. I feel comfortable with it. I feel like the surplus number is good to go. I do know that you'll probably get some requests from some additional money. I think there's a couple of other capital requests that are coming through. I have a list of potential changes that are coming up, like just some changes in revenue, some better numbers that I got. So I'll send that to you before your meeting on Saturdays so that you're aware. The other thing is we have short time schedules on Saturday. So, I mean, for the most part, a lot of these people have like 15 minutes. So I would, you know how a lot of times we get into all these policy discussions? So my suggestion would be try to obviously focus on the numbers so that we can get them where they want to be from the budget perspective.
Yeah.
Just my thought to you.
Appreciate it.
Why are you looking at me?
Alex. I mean, there's probably going to be, well, how'd the storm go? And, this and that, you know what I'm saying? But because our time is so limited, it's like.
I'll remind that for some people who may not be here too. This way they.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah.
We want to let them know.
I guess otherwise we'll bring our pillow and our blanket then, Yeah.
No,
Thank
very
you.
good.
Nice
Thank
job.
you. You make
Thank
it
you.
always make it easy for us to understand, which
Thank
is
you.
really good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we have 8 resolutions. Does anyone have any questions on those? Nope. Any old business?
Nope.
Any new business? Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Brian, state your name as you know for the record.
My name is Brian Schechter. My address is 80 Crenshaw Drive in Flanders. I serve the great town of Mount Olive in 2 different capacities. One is a member of the Planning Board, and one is a member of the Board of Education. Tonight I come to you as a member of the Board of Education and want to thank you on behalf of the board for the coordinated efforts by the administration and the governing body over the storm. The last storm, the coordination on Sunday night was pretty amazing between Larry Reynolds, myself, the mayor's office, the DPW, making sure that we went to a 2-hour delay to keep the kids off the streets while the DPW had enough time to get out and salt and sand on Monday morning. And you guys also offered your equipment, dump trucks, front loaders to help us with the parking lots, and we do appreciate that. It is, as Sherry called it, we represent the 69% of the tax burden of this town, and anywhere where we can share services, where we can help as a school board to the town, as the town to the school board, we are committed in making that happen. And I will put the offer out there that we look at other services. I know we're looking at a pool, a possible pool, donating property, a librarian. Right now we staff 6 librarians, 6 certified librarians. You guys need a library director that's a librarian. Where can we get some synergies there and possibly save the taxpayers some money? We're looking at all sorts of programs. The recreation department uses the facilities. We don't get a fee transfer in that. That's something that we open up. We staff the schools when the rec department's in there, summer programs for camps. But there's a commitment. The board president wants me to be clear that we are going to be setting up a task force on our side, and hopefully the governing body does the same thing with the administration to look at where we can fund some more synergies between the 2 bodies and help bring down the overall costs to the taxpayer, or not have them increase quite as fast. Thank you.
Yeah,
again.
thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep, appreciate that. Else from the public? Seeing none, close to the public. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, that's fine. Any opposed? No. Okay. Open the Mount Olive Township Council meeting for January 26th, 2016. Michelle, read the Open Public Meetings Act, please.
According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Here.
Mr. Ferrante?
Here.
Mrs. Labow, Mr. Mania, Mr. Stewart,
Here.
Mr. Roman,
Here.
Mr. Nacastro.
Here. Mr. Amianda, would you approve the minutes from the previous meeting for the reorg meeting, January 5th, and the workshop and public meeting for January 12th?
I make a motion for approval of the minutes of the previous meetings on January 12, 2016.
Second.
Any discussion? None? Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda,
Here,
Mr. Ferrante,
Yes on January 5th, 2016, abstain on January 12th, 2016.
Mr. Stewart,
Yes.
Mr. Roman,
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro.
Yes. We have 26 pieces of correspondence. Does anyone have any questions, concerns on that? On any of those? Seeing none. We have no ordinances this evening. We have a total of the 8 resolutions. Do we have a motion to accept, Mr. Ferrante? Oh, anyone, yeah, I'm sorry. Anyone like to move any to non-consent? Seeing none, Mr. Ferrante, would you move the 8 consent resolutions?
Sure, I make a motion to move consent resolutions 1 through 8.
second,
Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, close to the public. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda,
yes.
Mr. Ferrante.
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
Mr. Roman.
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro.
Yes. Mr. Ferrante, would you move the bill list?
I make a motion to move the bill list.
Second.
Any discussion? None, roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda.
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante.
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
Mr. Roman.
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro.
Abstain on check number 71422, and yes to all others. Mayor's appointments with advice and consent of council. We have appointment of Chuck McGarty, the township planner, 4-year term, expires 12/31/19. Appointment of Megan Tava, library board, mayor's alternative, 5-year term, expires 12/31/2019. And appointment of Catherine Crisillo, library board trustee at large, unexpired 5-year term, expires 12/31/16. Mr. Stewart, would you move the mayor's appointments?
I move for acceptance and consent for the council of the mayor's 3 appointments.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda.
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante.
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
Mr. Roman.
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro.
Yes. Any administrative reports, Laura?
I think the only thing that I would mention, and a lot of you probably heard that we did have some issues with the apartment complexes over the weekend and are still having those issues. So just so you know, we keep sending people out there to do some enforcement and issue violation notices. And myself and the chief of police and the public works director and the OEM coordinator, we are meeting with the 3 property managers on Friday afternoon to help them develop a game plan to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Thank you. Mr. Roman?
Laura, is those situations going on, is that something that you think maybe that they're violating current ordinances, or is it something we might need a new ordinance?
They're most definitely violating
Current, okay. So no new laws need to be,
I think the issue is preparedness.
Okay.
And we are going to not so gently help them make sure that they're prepared for the next storm.
thank you.
Hopefully there won't be a next storm, but
Yeah, right. Not this year, anyway. Anything else?
yeah, that's
Thank you. Any old business? Seeing none, any new business? Dawn, any legal matters? Okay, just checking. Council reports, Mr. Amianda, anything for Board of Ed?
Yes. And the Board of Education held its regular meeting on Monday, January 25th, 2016 at 6:30 p.m. at Mount Olive Middle School. Opening activities included reports and discussions. Dr. Larry Reynolds, Superintendent of Schools, gave reports on 1, bus emergency purchases of 6 replacements of buses which were out of service. Second, Superintendent gave a report on grades and HIB spelled out as harassment, intimidation, and bullying as required by New Jersey Department of Education. He also gave a report on Mount Olive High School's program curriculum expansion. The board took actions on personnel, curriculum and instruction, business, administration, and policy items. Discussion regarding full-day kindergarten took place under the old business section of the agenda. The floor was open to the public for comments. The board thanked the mayor and the road department personnel for a job well done for snow removal. All board members were happy with the mayor and the council's willingness to share facilities and services to reduce costs to taxpayers. Next board meeting is February 8, 2016, 6:30 p.m. at the administration building.
Thank you, Mr. Amianda. Mr. Ferrante, anything on environmental, lake, or library?
Nothing to discuss.
Thank you. Mr. Amianda, anything on senior citizens?
Yes. On Tuesday, January 19, 2016, Senior Citizens Club held a social meeting at the senior building. 2 new transportation workers were introduced to seniors by their supervisor. New drivers were well received by seniors.
Thank you. Ms. Leibow's not here. Mr. Stewart, anything on MOTV?
Yes, we've had, after taking, as we said last time on Lisa's recommendation, I did approach 2 of the chamber members, HTV Media and Robert Michael Productions, who both agreed that they will start to help us and will be doing some snippets within the different business community events, as well as some of the events that the rec department's showing, just to show off the interaction between business and the community from the piece that'll be donating that time for the TV.
That's great. Mr. Roman, anything on open space, rec?
Nothing on open space, and rec meets tomorrow.
Thank you. Board of Health meeting is, next one is Wednesday, February 20th at 6:30 right here. Mr. Maney is not here, so anyone from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, close to the public. Any council comments? Down the line?
I do. I want to thank everybody that was able to attend the breakfast with the mayors from the Mount Olive Area Chamber this morning, both Mayor Greenbaum as well as Mayor from Hackettstown did a great job for us, and we had it here in town at the Longhorn. Terrific job. Again, thanks for everybody for the support for that.
It's always a great event. Sorry I missed that one. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting's closed.